Watch the explosive moment. Reform's Jamie McIver and Labour's Matthew Leza drew clear battle lines over the migrant housing crisis. Live on GB News, McIver systematically demolished the government's plan to house 20,000 migrants in 5,000 homes, branding it an unfair betrayal of British taxpayers. The clash reached boiling point when the discussion turned to detention centres and legal routes for asylum, with Leza brutally challenged on Labour's stance. The war of words left the panel in stunned silence as the fundamental divide on immigration policy was exposed. Watch the clip. Before this, I want to say a big thank you to all our supporters who helped us reach our very first 1,000 subscribers. That achievement truly means a lot and inspires us to keep giving you our best. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Most people who watch our videos aren't actually subscribed. We know life gets busy, but subscribing is completely free and it really helps us grow. Our next goal is 3,000 subscribers, and with your support, we can get there even faster. You can also support the channel by checking out the links in the description, where you'll find some valuable books. They cost you no extra, but each purchase gives us a small commission that helps us improve our content. Thank you so much for being part of this journey.
Labour is now trying to put 20,000 illegal immigrants in 5,000 homes across Britain. We've got veterans being evicted in Bolton, victims of domestic abuse living in shipping containers in London, but Yvette Cooper will bend over backwards for illegals. Get ready for some shocking statistics that came out today. The number of asylum seekers in Britain is at a record high. There are 111,000, that's up 14%. Illegal arrivals are up 27%. There were 49,000 in the year to July this year. We can add a few thousand more on top now that we're in late August. Channel migrants account for 88% of illegal entries. So just imagine that. If we stop the boats, we'd have 88% less illegal entries. Since January 2018, 3/4 of small boat arrivals were men, while only 16% were children. I mean, just say that again. Since January 2018, 3/4 of small boat arrivals have been men. And I actually believe of those that were children, quite a few are actually men as well. Does someone want to tell Labour's Darren Jones?
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately for him, there's vanishingly small numbers of women and children, aren't there? The number of asylum seekers in hotels is up by 8%. We've got more than 32,000. Do you want to know what countries they've been coming from as well? Here's the top 5. Afghans, Eritreans, Iranians, Syrians and Sudanese. Well, in Finland, they've just done a study on whether migrants are a net benefit or a net cost to society. Shall we take a little look? To try to find 5,000 new homes for 20,000 illegal migrants is pretty shocking. Really.
Well, it all comes down, in my opinion, to fairness. It's just unfair on the British people. It's unfair on people that are trying hard to buy a house and save. It's unfair on the taxpayer to have to foot the bill for this. It's also just unfair on communities too. We've seen with the hotels, it's the same with this, just to dump people into these places. You know, ultimately, it's unsustainable. You know, we have a housing crisis in this country as it is. Our own citizens can't get on the housing ladder, and forget buying a house. You can hardly rent a house these days because the Home Office are renting so many. So I think we've got a real unfairness issue here, but also the data proves it, doesn't it? You know, all this idea that, you know, from people on the left that say immigration is the best thing that a country can have. Not all immigration is good immigration. Illegal immigration to this country is bad for our country. It's bad for our economy. We've seen it ourselves. Finland don't need to tell us, although I'm grateful for the research. Yeah. It's very obvious to me that the unsustainability of the lack of control of our borders is killing our economy.
Yeah, I mean, on that, really, as well, there's this figure of 111,000 people sought asylum in the last year, up 14%.
So that statistic is really interesting, and I know we're playing statistic baseball here.
Yeah, go for it.
But there's another one that I heard this week, which is that of that figure, 34% are people who entered, or around 34% are people who entered by irregular or illegal routes and claimed asylum when they got here. So people who have some form of desperation and are desperate to come from where they are coming from and get here and claim when they get here, right? It means that everybody else in that number came here legally and then, through another mechanism, claimed asylum.
Yep.
So students coming here legally as students and then claiming asylum. That is the chunk of that number that we have to see come down. Because that is really clearly, if you're coming here as a student, you have the wherewithal to apply for a student visa and financially get here to begin with, claiming asylum at the end of that is not an option.
Yeah, well, quite. And actually, but that is the real Mickey take. I mean, there was an article that was doing the rounds, and we covered it last week, and please don't, I'm not going to say I've got the exact figure here, but it was something like 160,000 care workers had just basically vanished. So they'd got a care visa, and then they'd gone into other jobs, all claimed asylum once they'd got here. So this is what...
it's also like, how are you going to get...
And we can do all of this.
Yeah, in terms of getting people back to Eritrea, it's very, very difficult. The answer is you have to get people back to the first European country that they enter, which is why...
While you remain in the ECHR. If you leave the ECHR, all of this alters.
But even if you leave the ECHR, what do you do? I mean, how do you just sort of... If Eritrea won't take people back, I'm just intrigued what people think we can do.
You elect a reform government. They did...
And Jamie's going to do nothing, apart from put our taxes up.
No. You elect a reform government, we leave the ECHR, we detain and we deport. And I think it's very...
So, Jamie, tell me how you're going to get... Because it's all very nice to sort of how swagger reform does, that it's all going to wave a magic wand. But life isn't like that, Jamie. How are you going to get people back to Eritrea?
Put them on a plane.
A thing called the aviation industry.
Yes, and Jamie, they won't. Yeah, I don't think you were working for an airline that flew to Eritrea because where they will not accept return flights. Okay. So who's going to fly there? If it's, I mean, just get a grip. It's so much more complicated. This idea you can wave a magic wand and it'll all be great because Nigel Farage is Prime Minister.
We've got no leverage over Eritrea.
We have got leverage.
We have a lot of people here who belong to the Eritrean National Service and they want them back. Now, I think that's a fate worse than death, and I think that's a horrible thing to do. And I think we should have countries where there are some agreements with quotas, maybe, of the number of people who can come in here. But Eritrea, I think, would certainly be high up at that list. That is a failed state. It is a horrible state. However, that doesn't mean they get to come here. Stay in your country and fix your country. And
also, I get very frustrated when we have this conversation. We keep talking about these people as though they're asylum seekers. They are not asylum seekers. And we need to... It's actually... They're fraudulent to claim that label. They are illegal immigrants entering the country illegally.
So, Jamie, can I just check that under reform, there wouldn't be there'd be no route for anybody to seek asylum in this country? Is that correct?
I haven't said that.
No, I'm asking you because that's the implication of what you're saying.
It's always my favourite.
But just honestly, I keep because in the short term, it does seriously look as though if these hotels, like the one in Epping, has to close, I think, within 2 weeks, and let's just say last time there's something like 27 other councils doing this now. Let's assume that they know that there wasn't the right planning permission for this. They should know because they presumably will have at one point given the planning permission for the hotel. So these hotels are probably going to have to close. In the short term, how can this government justify being able to find 5,000 rental homes for illegal migrants when we have, frankly, any form of homelessness whatsoever that's already here? How can they do that?
Well, they can't. That's why you had the front page of the Telegraph, which you flashed up earlier, predicting an autumn of discontent. There's going to be a lot of discontent right across this country, and the government have proven over the course of the last 12 months that they are unable to deal with that.
I think you pick up the phone to Dame Andrea Jenkins, who got it right after she got elected as Mayor of Lincolnshire, and you start to put people in accommodation that is acceptable for British soldiers overseas, which is some sort of detention centres. That is what this country needs. In other words, they need to be put in tents. If it's good enough for a serving British soldier, then...
It's somewhat colder in Lincolnshire in the winter than it is. I mean, you're going to see people die. I mean, it's just ludicrous. It's just nonsense.
Sorry, they don't moan about it in Glastonbury, do they?
If we were able to
I don't think Glastonbury in the middle of the summer, Jamie, is the same as Lincolnshire in the middle of December and January.
If we were able to build all of those Nightingale hospitals that quickly, why is it that we can't build a system of...
We might have to do that.
...country? And why aren't we putting shovels in the ground to do it? Because at the moment, we're spending more per mile of transportation on bats than we are on people.
Well, that was a crazy Tory policy, the bat tunnel.
In this country,
we've got rid of the bat tunnel.
The spout that we can't do that.
There are no bat tunnels under Labour.
The government's going to have to do something quick. This HMO option, I can see, and we're going to have to move on. But I can actually also just see from a purely safety aspect. You know, when there's hotels, you've got these ridiculous security guards a lot of the time that are wandering around there. But at least they're there. You know, HMOs just dotted around the country. I mean, you don't have security at those. You cannot have security at those. There was one guy who was the bloke, the Moroccan chap who travelled through 13 different countries before getting here, who stabbed a dog walker to death in Hartlepool. He was in age homo. There's obviously no security there. So I mean, again, this is worse, isn't it? So I do wonder if we're going to end up seriously with these Nightingale detention centres, whether that's the only solution, which is possibly quite bad news for, what was it, the Excel Centre in the Principality Stadium in Wales.
They'll be asking to go home if they do that. So,
Well,
and we can pay for those flights.
So that was fascinating about the Rwanda scheme, because The Guardian went down to the Channel to interview migrants. At the end of this, like, isn't this horrible piece, they had quotations from the three guys, I think from Sudan and Eritrea, talking about, you know, the Rwanda scheme, having heard about it, landing on the shores, all of whom said, if we knew we were going to go back to Africa, we would not have come. So it was a deterrent. And it was never allowed to be an actual functioning deterrent because, for pretty good reasons, my party got thrown out of government.
All right, well, there we go. Well, yeah, well, quite, yes.
We can agree on that.